Hello, happy Friday. Welcome back to the show. Today I have a Q&A episode for you, but before we get into the questions for today, I do want to announce the winners of the Super Coffee giveaway. So a few weeks ago, I did an episode with Jimmy DeSico, who is the CEO of Super Coffee. I believe that was episode 37. If you haven't checked it out yet, definitely after you listen to this episode, you can go check that one out. But Jimmy was generous enough to give away $300 worth of prizes. So 3 winners each got each will get $100 of Super Coffee or $100 gift card to supercoffee.com, which is, you can choose any of the Super Coffee products. So that giveaway was open for the last few weeks and it is now closed, and I am announcing the winners that I picked at random. So if you won, I will announce your name in a second, but I will also add it to the show notes and I will add the directions for how to claim your prize. So the winners of the Super Coffee giveaway, these are either your iTunes podcast handle or your Instagram handle. And if you won, please send an email to rachel@metflexlife.com with your full name, shipping address, and I will get you your gift card ASAP. So the winners are, the first one is Marissa Lee, Leigh 88. As the first winner. Second winner is Johnnyomist. Third winner is bterra00. So those are not obviously the names with your Instagram or podcast handles. If that is you and you're listening to this episode, please shoot me an email and view the show notes for anything else that I just mentioned. Anyway, let's get into the questions for today's Q&A episode. All right, first question today, can I build muscle with just body weight exercises? Answer, yes. All right, next question. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, you can definitely build muscle with just body weight exercises. You just got to get creative. So there are a ton of different ways to manipulate exercises and setups to keep you progressing in all different types of body weight training. The biggest thing though, and I chat about this all the time, before I get into the different techniques and strategies, you must make sure that you are tracking your progression and that you're progressing through these exercises. So I talk about progressive overload all the time. You want to make sure that you are progressing week to week within just body weight training. If your main goal is to build muscle, you do not want to be doing tons and tons of reps and just getting your heart rate up and not knowing whether or not you're actually progressing week to week, right? That would be more of like conditioning and cardio training versus actually focused on breaking down your muscles to build them up, right? So this is a little bit more challenging with body weight exercises, but you can definitely incorporate strategies and techniques to help you with this. And I'm going to go over a few of those today. But the biggest thing is you want to make sure you're progressing. You want to make sure you're not just doing like tons and tons of reps and things like that, where your heart rate's, skyrocketing and you're sweating and all of that, but you're not actually focusing on load and putting your muscles under good tension. So anyway, let's get into a few of these strategies and this will make a little bit more sense. So the first one would be unilateral or single leg or single arm work. So with lower body, this would be things like split squats, lunges, single leg RDLs. With upper body, it's a little bit harder to do like single arm movements. You can do, one arm push-up progressions starting, from the wall and working your way down, but that's probably very, very difficult for most people. I don't even know if I don't think I can do a one arm push-up. So it's a little bit more difficult with single arm movement, so I'd probably utilize some of the other techniques I'm going to go over for upper body. You can also do like one arm planks. That's more core and full body, but you obviously are getting some upper body work in there too. So that would be, the first one would just be thinking about what exercises you can turn into single leg or single arm work, probably single leg work. And split squats, lunges, those are all really, really great exercises. I love split squats. Well, actually, I have a love-hate relationship with those, especially during quarantine. But yeah, all right, so let's move on to the next one. So the next strategy or technique would be manipulating tempo. So this would be, either slowing down the movement to create more time under tension or adding pauses in or isometric holds. So for example, we'll take the split squat. So you can, if you're doing a split squat with your foot elevated on, say, like a couch or a chair or something like that, to slow the movement down, you could lower yourself slowly. So like 3 to 5 second lowering and then exploding up. So that would be one way to manipulate the tempo and create more time under tension. You could also add in like a pause at the bottom. So as you're lowering, you could pause at the bottom of the rep for like 3 to 5 seconds and then explode up. You could also add like a more extended pause at the end of the set. So say you've done, 12 reps, then you can hold at the bottom on the last rep for like maybe 20 to 30 seconds. So these are all ways to manipulate tempo, and you can do this for a lot of different exercises. So split squats, maybe hip thrusts or glute bridges. You could do pauses at the top or holds at the top. If you're doing push-ups, you can manipulate your push-up tempo by slowly lowering yourself to the ground, holding there for a few seconds, and exploding up. So those would be kind of general ways to manipulate tempo. And again, that will add more time under tension to the movement and more stress for your muscles to help, again, break them down, to build them up. So that would be the second technique. The third one would be manipulating points of contact to change the angles of certain movements. So for example, we'll take the push-up again. There's so many different hand and foot positions you can manipulate to make push-ups harder, like all the way from your hands on the wall to maybe being upside down with your feet on the wall, which would be a handstand push-up. So there's like literally so many different progressions with that, and you're just manipulating the points of contact to make things harder, right? So that's an example with the push-up. This also kind of goes into the next technique, which is manipulating range of motion. So you're also manipulating kind of the joint angles. You're changing the range of motion, whether it's to shorten or lengthen it. So exercises like, adding in things like elevated, I just blanked. Elevation or deficits. Sorry. So like deficit push-ups or elevated deadlifts. Obviously, if you're just doing body weight, it's hard to do deadlifts, but you can, I'm going to talk about this in a second, you can get creative with what you do have available to add load to these movements. But if, for example, manipulating the range of motion for push-ups, you could do deficit push-ups, you could put your feet up on a couch, or you could use books to put your hands up on those books and do push-ups and increase that range of motion. So there's tons of different ways you can manipulate that. So that would be, I forgot what number I'm at, but that would be another technique. Another one would be pre-fatiguing muscles using isometric holds. So this is really just making certain muscles work harder by pre-fatiguing them. So an example of pre-fatiguing quads, you could do like an isometric quad contraction where you're squeezing your quads as hard as possible for like 15 to 20 seconds right before you go into, say, a lower body movement like split squats or lunges. So I like the poor man's leg extension now I'm just jumbling my words. The poor man's leg extension is actually a quad isolation exercise. If you've never done that, definitely look it up. It's a very great exercise, a body weight exercise for your quads. But again, going back to the pre-fatiguing the muscle, doing that isometric hold with your quads, either standing or sitting before you do a split squat or a lunge or whatever it may be, that's a good way to kind of pre-fatigue the muscles and get a little bit more out of the actual exercise. You could also do this with glute bridges. So you could pre-fatigue your glutes by doing glute bridge iso hold. So doing a glute bridge and squeezing as hard as you can at the top, and then maybe go into like a single leg RDL or a single leg glute bridge and do some reps with those. You can also do this with upper body as well. Again, it's going to be a little bit harder, but you can pre-fatigue your shoulders by doing like handstands on the wall. So just doing a handstand hold and then going into maybe some push-ups. So that would be a good way to pre-fatigue your shoulders. Trying to think if there's any other ways to do that or any other exercises. Those are kind of the main ones with that technique. And then beyond body weight movements, just kind of thinking of, like I said, getting creative with what you have available to you, right? So most people have a backpack. Most people have some books in their house. So take those books, put them in the backpack, put that backpack around your back, and that is weight, right? You can, even if you don't have books, you can add, water bottles or, wine bottles or champagne bottles or whatever it is, you can add those to the backpack, and that will add a lot of load. You can also use other things like wine bottles to do shoulder raises, or hold your kids and do squats with them, or your cat or dog. So there's so many different ways that you can get creative with adding weight to your body weight exercises, even if you don't have like traditional gym equipment. So those are the techniques that I would suggest. I also talked a little bit more about this in a previous episode. I think it was episode 10. And that was called Shifting Your Goals and Mindset, Optimizing At-Home Workouts, and Implementing Refeeds and Diet Breaks. So I talk about at-home workouts in that episode as well, but these are kind of the main techniques that I would incorporate if you're trying to build muscle with just bodyweight exercises. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, next question, top 3 pre-workout supplements and why? Okay, so I'm going to give you my top 3. I feel like a lot of people have different top 3 or different opinions on these, but I'll just kind of give you what my top 3 would be, and this may or may not change in the future, but this is what it is right now. So the first one would be caffeine. So caffeine is, as most of us know, one of the most studied and used performance-enhancing supplements. It's a stimulant, meaning that it acts on our central nervous system to increase alertness, cognition, performance, and just overall energy. So obviously, the more energy you have, the more alert you are. It probably means the more focused you're going to be during your workout, and the more energy you have, the less perceived exertion you'll have. And again, the more focus, more you're able to lift, more you're able to progress, more gains you have. So caffeine, I would say, again, it's like the most studied ergogenic aid for not just workouts, but like anything. So I would say that is definitely my number one for sure. I supplement with, I don't typically use pre-workout supplements, but I definitely drink coffee. So coffee is my caffeine of choice. Something to note though is that you can create a tolerance to caffeine. So it's probably beneficial to utilize like the minimal effective dose here. So using, a little bit and titrating that up depending on how, tolerated you are. But usually the dosing of caffeine ranges anywhere from like 100 to 500 milligrams per day. That's a huge range because everybody's different. But if you are consuming like 5 shots of espresso every single day, that is probably a lot. So again, you can develop a tolerance to caffeine, and then it can just be something that you need more and more to kind of feel the same effects. So I would just be careful with that. You can even, take breaks, cycle it in and out if you can. I've tried that before. It's hard because you do get withdrawal, but there are kind of tips and tricks around that, incorporating things like caffeinated tea, which usually doesn't have as much caffeine as coffee, or, titrating down your pre-workout supplement if you are taking one. With pre-workout supplements in general, you just want to be careful because a lot of them are pumped full of just tons and tons of caffeine. So definitely just be careful with that. But anyway, I can go on and on about caffeine, but that would be my number 1. My number 2, this is probably not as traditional as you'd think, but salt or sodium is probably my number 2 pre-workout supplement. And this goes, for whether or not you're following a lower carb diet or a keto diet. Even if you're following a higher carb diet, I still think incorporating salt pre-workout is beneficial. And there's a few reasons for this. The first one would be because it just gives you a really good pump. So the reason for that is sodium actually pulls water into your cells, which includes your muscle cells, which causes them to expand and give you that pump, right? That muscle pump. So when there's extra sodium in your bloodstream, it basically pulls water into your blood vessels increasing the total amount or total volume of blood inside your blood vessels, which just translates to increasing blood flow, right? So increasing blood flow is a good thing, especially if you're going into a workout. So we want blood flow to your muscles. We want you to get that good pump. So that would be the first reason why salt is super important. The second reason is it helps to maintain membrane potential. So sodium is essential for the maintenance of membrane potential, which just affects how your muscles contract and also your cardiac function. So muscle contraction is obviously super important and something we want to optimize with when we're lifting or when working out. So salt and sodium is very important for that. The third reason would be salt helps to balance all the other electrolytes in your body, right? So sodium is one of the main electrolytes in the human body, and proper sodium intake can greatly influence electrolyte balance. This also is important if you are someone who maybe struggles with muscle cramps during a workout or after workout. If that is you, try taking some sodium or salt and also potentially supplementing with magnesium. That can help with muscle cramps as well. So that would be the third reason I recommend salt. And the fourth reason is because it actually influences nutrient absorption and transport. So sodium influences the absorption of different nutrients such as amino acids and glucose, which we know are important for both pre and post-workout to help you better absorb and utilize the nutrients that you're actually consuming if you have a pre or post-workout meal. So that is another benefit of having salt or sodium pre-workout. So what I would recommend is, what I usually do is add like a quarter or half a teaspoon of high quality sea salt to my pre-workout meal, which is usually like an hour to 2 hours to 3 hours before, depending on, where I'm at. Or if you are not having a pre-workout meal, or even like say I have a pre-workout meal like 2 hours before, then I'll add salt to that, but then I'll also take about a quarter teaspoon of salt right before my training with some water. So I'll just add some salt to my hand, chug it down with some water. So I do that every single day. And then sometimes if I'm having, like if it's a really hot day out, my gym doesn't have any AC. So if I'm sweating a lot, I will add like an extra pinch of salt to my water bottle just to sip on like while I'm lifting or while I'm training. And then I also keep a salt little, what is it called? Just like a little salt thing in my bag. It's from Redmond Real Salt. I love that company. I use their salt on everything. So I keep that in my gym bag just in case I am feeling lightheaded or anything like that, which doesn't usually happen, but just in case, or if I feel like I'm not getting a good pump, or I just want some more salt. So I always keep that in my gym bag. So salt or sodium would be number 2. Okay, number 3 would be creatine monohydrate. So this is not necessarily a pre-workout supplement. Like you don't have to take it pre-workout. You can actually take it anytime throughout the day. But I remember to take it pre-workout, or I always take it pre-workout. So I'm putting that into my top 3. I will give you a fourth one just because this technically isn't a pre-workout, but anyway. So creatine is actually one of the most well-researched supplements in the world, and it basically works by helping us to produce more ATP and therefore energy, which ATP is just energy, which can obviously lead to increased performance, recovery, and cognition. So creatine I'm not going to dive into all the benefits of creatine and what they are and why you should consume it in this episode, because I actually talked to an expert in supplements, Shawn, and he chatted all about the benefits of creatine in episode 33. So I will link that in the show notes. So if you haven't checked that out yet, definitely check it out. There's a whole section that we recorded on creatine and how it works, the importance of it, and all of that. In terms of supplementing per day, a typical dose is probably around 4 to 5 grams. And again, you can take this anytime throughout the day. It doesn't have to be pre-workout, but that's just when I take it, when I remember to take it. So that would be number 3, but because that's technically not or doesn't have to be a pre-workout, I am going to give a number 4. And this is for all those who are out there listening that are low carb or keto athletes specifically. So my number 4th would be Superstarch, or UCan Superstarch. So Superstarch is a complex carbohydrate that doesn't spike blood sugar, and it delivers a slow and steady release of glucose into your bloodstream. So it doesn't cause a significant rise in your blood sugar. Therefore, it doesn't cause a significant rise in blood insulin levels, which actually can permit greater use of fat for fuel relative to other carbohydrate sources. So that is why Superstarch is definitely beneficial for low carb or keto athletes. I've talked about this in the past. I forget who I chatted with about it, but if you're interested in checking out UCan Superstarch, I will link that in the show notes to their website. I kind of always describe Superstarch as a carb that actually acts as a fat because of its slow release. I really like it. I take it, like, when I do take it, it's like 20 to 30 minutes before my workout, and I kind of just sip on that in the beginning of the workout and then make sure that I finish it like halfway through the workout. And it just gives me like an extra bit of energy towards the end of the workout. That's when I really notice it. I don't take it every single day, but I do take it if, I haven't had a pre-workout meal or whatever it may be. So anyway, that would be number 4. I know you said top 3, but I know we have a lot of low carb and keto athletes listening to this, so definitely check out UCan Superstarch if you haven't. Also, if you are an endurance athlete, it's definitely popular in the endurance space. So again, I'll link that in the show notes if you're interested. And yeah, that would be my top 3 plus one more supplements for pre-workout. All right, next question is, do you recommend BCAAs or branched chain amino acids? So I would say it depends, which I'm going to dive into what I would recommend them for. There's a few different scenarios, but first let's just chat about what BCAAs are. So I mentioned branched chain amino acids. Also, I do talk in depth about this Shawn Wells, I mentioned him earlier in a different episode that we recorded, but we actually recorded another episode where we talked all about protein, supplementation with protein, and specifically BCAAs. So if you're interested in learning more about BCAAs and more in depth on those, definitely check out episode 43 with Shawn Wells. I will link that in the show notes. But just to give you kind of a quick rundown, BCAAs are part of the essential amino acids. So first, what are amino acids? Amino acids are what make up protein, right? So protein is made up of amino acids, and we have both non-essential amino acids and essential amino acids. Non-essential amino acids just means those are the amino acids that your body can produce, like your body can make those, while essential amino acids, also known as EAA'S, your body cannot make those. So you must get those from your food, or what you're consuming, whether it's supplements, food. I would recommend food as your main source of essential amino acids, obviously. But the best sources of those essential amino acids are probably going to be coming from animal products. Again, Shawn and I dive into why that's the case in episode 43, so definitely check that out. But again, BCAAs are branched chain amino acids, and there's actually 3 branched chain amino acids. These are specifically leucine, isoleucine, and valine. I would say like the main benefit of using a BCAA supplement is very similar to the benefits of just ingesting protein in general. So my recommendation probably would not be if you are consuming adequate protein, then you probably don't need to supplement with BCAAs. There are a few scenarios, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but the main benefit of supplementing with BCAAs is probably leucine, which is one of the branched chain amino acids, is specifically helps and plays a big role when we're talking about activating muscle protein synthesis, or basically just building muscle. Muscle protein synthesis is building muscle. And I've talked about this before, and again, I talked about this with Shawn. But when you are thinking about kind of turning that switch on to activating muscle protein synthesis, you must have enough leucine to do that. So leucine, it's called the leucine threshold, and it's basically like the light switch that kind of turns on muscle protein synthesis. So that is just something to understand, and it's not that you should be consuming tons and tons of just leucine and not consume the other essential amino acids or the other amino acids in general. You need them all together, but there is this leucine threshold that we just have to be mindful of. So if you aren't consuming a lot of foods that don't have leucine in them, then that's probably going to be probably hurting you in the end, especially if your main goal is building muscle. So anyway, chat a lot about that with Shawn in the episode 43, which I will link in the show notes. But in general, the only time that I would personally recommend supplementing with BCAAs or even essential amino acids is probably in these scenarios. So there's a few different ones. The first one would be if you are following a plant-based diet. So if you are vegan or vegetarian and you're not getting all of the essential amino acids you need, especially in their most bioavailable form. So it is harder to get essential amino acids in just plant foods because they are most essential amino, not most essential amino acids, but essential amino acids are very, you can get them in their most bioavailable form, which means your body absorbs them and utilizes them the best when they come from animal sources. So if you are a vegetarian or a vegan and you are not consuming enough complete proteins, protein sources that include all the range of those amino acids, if you're lacking leucine, which is a big thing for a lot of people who are following a vegan or a vegetarian diet and your main goal is to build muscle, you have to make sure that you're getting enough essential amino acids and enough leucine specifically as well in that. So that would be the first scenario where I would potentially recommend supplementing with BCAAs or EAAs, essential amino acids. The next one would be maybe if you're training maybe if you're training fasted or in a glycogen depleted state and your goal is to build muscle or to maintain muscle, that would be another scenario where you could potentially supplement with BCAAs or EAAs to make sure that you're getting enough of those essential amino acids again. The next scenario would be if you can't get like a solid meal with a good amount of quality protein pre and or post workout. So if you are, again, either if you're training in the morning or if you just can't get a good meal or if you just don't like training on a full stomach, but again, your goal is to optimize muscle protein synthesis and building muscle, using BCAAs as a supplement or EAAs as a supplement to sip on maybe during your workout, that could be beneficial. But again, if you're getting enough overall protein and high quality sources of protein throughout the day, then this becomes less important. It's kind of more of an insurance policy, but that would be another scenario. Also, another scenario would be if you're in a severe calorie deficit. So if you're at the end of a fat loss phase, or maybe if you're prepping for a photo shoot or a bodybuilding show or something like that, your calories and your nutrients are going to be low. So you can kind of, again, use BCAAs or EAAs as an insurance policy to make sure you are getting enough of those amino acids circulating throughout your body. Because again, if you are in a severe calorie deficit, your calories are going to be low, your nutrients are going to be low. And so this can, again, just act as that insurance policy. And then the last would be, if you just like the flavor, there's BCAA supplements and EAA supplements that are all like flavored usually. So if that helps you to drink more water, if you're adding those to your water and it helps you remember to hydrate throughout the day, then that would be another scenario where I would recommend them. But in general, if you are consuming enough protein throughout the day, with mostly coming from high quality animal sources, then you're good to go. If you fall into any of the scenarios that I just mentioned, then you can potentially supplement with BCAAs or EAAs. But again, it's not going to be like a magic pill or anything like that to building muscle. So that would be my opinion. In general, I don't supplement with BCAAs or EAAs, but again, I dive into this with Shawn Wells in episode 43. So check that out, listen to that one if you would like to know more about BCAAs. All right, last question. When you've gotten a horrible night's sleep, is it better to push through a workout or take an off or light day? I think it depends. So the first question I would ask you is this a regular occurrence, or is it just like a once in a blue moon thing? If it is a regular occurrence, then I would definitely recommend kind of reevaluating your everything, reevaluating your overall stress level, your recovery, your nutrition, your sleep in general, so like your nighttime routine, things like that. So if it's a regular occurrence, then that's kind of a whole other subject. But if it is a once in a kind of blue moon thing, then I would say the first thing I would do personally is I would just look at my overall week of training and see if I could move things around, knowing that I won't be performing my best this day after a night's horrible sleep. Sleep is very important, and it is definitely, especially if you have, depending on what your workout split is. So currently I'm doing an upper lower split, which just means that I'm doing 2 upper body days and 2 lower body days. So again, if I had a completely crappy night of sleep and I was supposed to do a leg or a lower body workout today, I would probably switch things around if I could and do either an upper body workout or take a rest day or whatever it may be. Just knowing that for me, lower body workouts are more taxing, and I have to have really good energy. I have to have good sleep and have to be recovered well to perform my best with that. Whereas, I do have to be recovered and have good sleep with upper body workouts, but for me and for most people, lower body workouts are a lot more taxing, especially like if you have squats and deadlifts and hip thrusts and things like that. So I would say that's what I would do. I would look at my overall week of training and see if I could move things around. I think it also comes back to where you're at with your goals. So are you prepping for something that's coming up soon? If it's, I don't know, like a vacation or a photo shoot or a bodybuilding show, is a little bit more extreme, but when is that, right? Is that close? Is it something that's far out, or is it something that is, next week and you have to make sure that you're getting that workout in? So it's not that one workout is going to make or break, probably, but again, it just kind of comes down to where you're at with your overall goals. And if there is no specific goal that you're shooting for and you're just, working out, I would always recommend having some goal in mind. But if it's just another kind of average week of workouts and you got a really crappy night of sleep, I would just say look at your overall week and see if you can move things around. If you can't move things around, then probably, go in, do the workout. Don't push yourself to the end where you're going to be very, very burnt out and to the point where you could potentially injure yourself. Obviously, you don't want that to happen. So yeah, that's what I would recommend, and that's what I would do probably. So yeah, again, if it is a once in a blue moon thing, then you could either take an off day or a light day or just rearrange your schedule. If it's a reoccurring thing, then that's a whole other kind of rabbit hole to go down with making sure that you are optimizing your sleep. And on that note, I actually do have a optimizing sleep checklist on my website. So I will link that in the show notes if you haven't downloaded that. It's basically a free 1-page PDF where I go through what to focus on to make sure that you are optimizing your sleep. So you literally just go through the checklist, and if you get to a certain box that you can't check, then you would focus on that, and then you would move on and continue through. So check that out. I will link it in the show notes. And those are all the questions we have for today. Thank you, as always, for listening. Again, if you want to check out the show notes, they are in the description of this podcast, of this episode, or you can go to my website, metflexlife.com. I have all of the show notes in detail on my website, on my blog, so you can check that out with links to things that I talk about. And yeah, if you are enjoying the show, as always, please share it out with anybody that you think might benefit from the show itself or specific episodes. And you can always take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram if you're listening to this show and you want to help spread the word. My Instagram handle is @rachelgregory.cns. All right, I will see you next time.